Hey, everybody, welcome back to the episode 26 of the AI Outcomes podcast. I'm kind of laughing because you wouldn't believe it. I'm hitting record, then someone starts making huge amounts of noise in the room above me. Then the Biffa lorry arrives and is just like causing all sorts of massive amounts of noise. So this is like my third go at this. But anyway, this is part two of a two-parter for people, I guess, in sales, consultancy, pre-sales type roles, but on the supply side in that whole kind of B2B dynamic. So if you haven't listened to part one yet, go back and grab that first. It sets out a really key mindset shift, which is that why AI is not a technology project, but a full-on business transformation program for your customer. And I guess AI, it's really powerful, but it's still an enabler of business outcomes. It's not all kind of win in itself. So today in part two, I'm going to show you how, as a seller or a consultant, you can actually engage with your customers inside that transformation. So there's going to be 4 clear steps. And remember, we're building the plane as we're flying it. And that's true for customers adopting AI, just as it is for us on the supply side, bringing AI solutions to our customers. Of course, the AI market keeps continually changing, so that all needs to be built in, and we need to take account of that. But look, let's get into it. So 4 clear steps. Step 1, I've called this anchor on business outcomes and demonstrate the art of the possible. So the first step is simple but critical. Anchor on the business outcomes that your customer needs to achieve. So every conversation you have with a customer about AI has to link back to their stated goals, which might be efficiency, customer experience, risk management, growth, and just as importantly, where the pain is for individual employees in their business. Because whilst, of course, we're always looking for efficiency and ROI in any kind of business change program, the companies aren't going to shrink their way to success. And all the headlines you see about AI creating massive job unemployment and redundancies, that's not actually the reality for most businesses. They're actually going to use AI to probably take the pain away from their employees. So step 1's all about show how AI can take away the friction, the repetitive tasks, the kind of admin that clogs up people's days. And the quickest way to win support is to make people's lives better, because everyone in the workforce is going to have a level of fear around AI because of how AI is positioned in the media and whatnot. And so if we can help them understand, no, this is going to make your life better, then that's a really great way to get them on board. So here's a really good technique that you can do with kind of C-suite teams and especially, which is write the press release first. I'm a little bit annoyed, actually. Well, I was writing the press release with my teams way back when we were selling outsourcing partnerships. And before we got into all the granular detail, I was like, look, before we get into all of that, let's just write what is the press release that we jointly release with this customer if we win. What's the press release going to say? And it's not going to talk about all the technology and all the solution detail. It's going to talk about really exciting outcomes that this partnership has helped us achieve. The reason I'm a little bit annoyed is a certain large cloud provider, 3 letters in their name. Apparently, they also do this now, but I was about 10 years in advance of them. So sit down with the executive team from your customer and draft what would they want to announce once their AI program actually succeeds. And that forces everyone to talk the language of outcomes and not just technology. And here's another part of step 1. So it's partly anchor on outcomes, but it's also, well, what's the art of the possible? And we've seen this with all major kind of shifts in technology. So you had business analytics, cloud, Internet of Things. They were all like buzzwords and a lot of CEOs just kind of like, I don't know what it means. Show me what that looks like. So I think you've got to show some real examples. And CEOs already know that the AI technology is super powerful. They get it, but many haven't seen it in action. And that spark comes from when they see a demo that kind of makes it real. Now, I covered a real example of Greg Jackson, who's the CEO of Octopus Energy. He was like one of the really early adopters of AI in his customer services function in his business. Now, he first saw AI working at his off-site meeting when someone brought ChatGPT in. This was like when ChatGPT had just first come out, and he watched ChatGPT respond live to customer services queries, and that was the moment it just shifted for him, and I guess probably his team in the room. And so when leaders see AI agents actually automating real use cases, they start to realize the business outcomes they can that they can pursue are bigger than the ones that they perhaps first imagined, and it really gets them thinking. So that's step one. Anchor on business outcomes, show the art of the possible. Step two is map the stakeholders and the governance. So the second step is all about, I guess, who's going to be in the team. Now, successful AI adoption depends on way more than just IT. IT are part of the team. I also think you as an end customer can't have AI done to you. I think it needs to be your program, and I think you need a really strong ecosystem of kind of consultants and partners and people who can bring in the necessary technology, but it's got to be your program that you own. So I think and we've heard from lots of CEOs on this podcast already. I think it really needs a CEO who maybe is not an AI expert, but's really interested in it and probably using AI kind of just generally, as part of their day-to-day lives. So I think the CEO is really important. It probably doesn't work for CEO to be the overall program leader. So I think the CEO needs to nominate probably a strong kind of functional leader who really understands the ins and outs of the business, how they get things done, kind of what the learnings have been, where they're going next. So I think there needs to be an executive leader for an AI program. And also then you're going to want to start bringing your functional kind of lines of business leaders. So you might have customer service. We know customer service is so many use cases for AI and customer services. It was like the first of those functions to really start getting transformed with the technology, wasn't it? But you've got AI, finance, and operations, and operations changes by the nature of the customer's business. And I think if you're on the sales side, you have to understand the structure of the customer's business. What are their operating companies? How does it work? And then, of course, yes, you need strong representation from technology. And I guess if we're going to change how people work, HR is really important to have in the room as part of the team, because any time we change markedly how people are going to work within the business, that's an HR-led program, isn't it? So you've got to. It's going to be different for every business, but the point is you need to get a team together, and then that needs a governance framework. And I always say governance equals oversight. So it doesn't need to restrict, but it just needs to provide some oversight. We've seen some of the early challenges in delivering AI programs that have then had to be stopped. So you need guardrails, and you need to keep things safe and aligned across the business without kind of putting the air brakes onto everything and then just doing nothing. But without governance, kind of AI projects and programs, they just fall apart and they don't deliver. So we've already seen some real examples. Microsoft Copilots oversharing sensitive data because no one set the rules. So you've got governance, and you've probably got a whole conversation around privacy. So as a seller, you need to show that you understand governance is as important as your technology. So step three is start small, prove value, then scale. So here is a mindset shift. And think back to the early days of, say, cloud adoption. Now, nobody sold a giant cloud infrastructure replacement on day one. It just didn't work like that. So the technology industry was used to speccing up large infrastructures to host data and deliver technology services, and cloud transformed that. And so you moved away from looking for these really big kind of whale specifications that were a really big investment for the customer up front, and you move to just, hey, let me just get this customer to move the first workload into the new cloud environment. And you proved the concept. And then the volume just looked after itself. As long as it worked, and as long as it delivered it, and as long as you could demonstrate the ROI, the volume then just looked after itself. And I think AI is the same. So help your customer pick one function, and it could be customer services, it could be a process in HR or in finance, but something where there's a really laborious amount of activity going on, and just pick a first use case. And it could be anything that the customer kind of puts the hands up and suggests, but all businesses know where the really, really mundane things are. And let's see if AI can automate that. So automate one workflow, get a proof of concept running quickly, and deliver a win inside probably the first 60 days. Then that success becomes the template for scaling across other functions. And it demonstrates a safe, structured process for AI adoption, something you can then help the customer expand company-wide that isn't based upon people losing their jobs, because that's what everybody's scared of. And I think if that's what AI represents to your workforce, is this thing's going to take your job, expect resistance. Turkeys don't vote for Christmas, do they? And so don't position AI like that. And then I think step 4. So you've got step 3 steps there. Then I think step 4 is positioning yourself as part of an ongoing kind of ecosystem that's there to work with the customer, help them introduce new AI as it comes to market. So customers, I think, need a kind of multiple partners to make AI work for them. They're probably going to need software vendors, infrastructure providers, kind of process consultants, change managers, or catalysts in their business is a term I think is really important. And no single supplier can cover it all. So I think you need to be really, really clear on what you bring, but just as importantly, be clear on what you don't do. Or if you're doing something for the first time, tell your customer that. So this is not a time for over-promising to customers. Customers will actually respect you much more if you say, hey, this isn't our core, but here's where we can add the real value. And remember, because AI is so new, customers may even accept that it's the first time that you're actually doing something, as long as you're open and transparent about it. So sellers who play well in the ecosystem and who are honest about their role are the ones that are kind of going to get repeatedly invited back into the room. Okay. And then if I was going to say, well, what's a final step? If there was going to be a final step, I guess a step 5 that I would then probably build upon, maybe do a future podcast episode on this actually, is that just around adoption. So how do we drive adoption and the necessary culture change? So AI doesn't succeed on logins kind of alone. It succeeds when employees actually use it in their day-to-day work. So it's become how we do business. And that for me is culture change. So we used to do business this way, and now with the help of AI, we do business in a different way. That for me is a change in the company culture. So bringing customers' ideas from real case studies, running innovation workshops, tracking adoption curves, celebrating employee discovered use cases. That's how you shift culture from a kind of fear of this technology to no, actually it's a lot better, and we're excited about doing more with it. And so it's a culture change where you prove you're a partner, not just a vendor. And I think the customers on the customer side really need that. So I hope that's been useful for you. So there's 4 clear steps, and then probably a marker there, which is for me to build out that step 5, which is how do we drive ongoing adoption and really change culture. So let's bring it all together. So step 1, anchor everything on business outcomes, demonstrate art of the possible. Step 2 is to map stakeholders and governance, because without clear ownership and guardrails, AI projects will just stall and have to be stopped, possibly. Step 3 is to start small, pick one function, get that first workflow into proof of concept fast, and let the results build the momentum. And then step 4 is kind of know your place in that ecosystem and work really well with other partners, may even be your competitors on some occasions, but be clear on what you bring to the customer, but just as clear on what you don't bring. And so if you do those 4 things, you'll position yourself not as someone trying to sell AI, but as someone helping your customer transform with AI as a long-term program. Remember this, if you're not helping your customers identify that first AI workload today, I guess you can probably bet your life one of your competitors is. So that's really important to start small and prove the concept. So that's part 2 of episode 26. I hope you found this really useful. As always, let me know in the comments. Let me know your feedback. And if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please subscribe, give me a like, and that's really supportive for the podcast. And I shall see you on the next episode of AI Outcomes, where we actually have back Thomas Odenwald. So haven't seen Thomas for a couple of months now. So he's back in California, and he's going to give us a rundown of all the latest news coming out of the Valley. So yeah, definitely tune into that. I think we're recording that one tomorrow or Wednesday. So yeah, stay with us. See you on the next episode of AI Outcomes.